as one in the retro gaming community, I can confirm this whole thing's kind of strange because, like, guys, why are we collecting retro video games? There's no doubt that a lot of people love these games. Of course, some old folks will refuse to accept modern game releases and think that the NES is the magnum opus of video game history. And to that I say, what's your evidence? Donkey Kong Jr. Math? Is that your evidence? On top of that, it's Christmas time again, my personal favorite time of the year. The months around the holidays is always so joyful to me, but with all the chilly weather outside and just other stuff going on, it makes you want to stay in and relax. But there's something about the Christmas season, it could just be tradition because this whole thing happens every year, but it makes me think about nostalgia. And you may be thinking, well, what are you, 2 years old? You can't have nostalgia. No matter what you think of that, nostalgia is such an important part of the Christmas season and is a big reason people collect retro video games. See, it all connects in the end. Yeah, I want to mainly focus more on how nostalgia has affected the gaming landscape over what I am specifically nostalgic for. I just thought this topic kind of fit well with the Christmas season and I wanted to talk about it. I mean, seriously, do you guys remember when Mario 3? Yeah.
As I mentioned, one of the most common reasons people seem to begin retro video game collections is through nostalgia. A lot of people who had older consoles move on from them, but then eventually they start to remember all the fun they had playing those games and decide to reobtain them by whatever means necessary. So what's going on here? Well, obviously most of the stuff I've collected here is not due to nostalgia. I don't even think I'd be able to convince you I grew up on Yoshi's Island.
I did!
Nah, that wasn't very convincing. Yeah, personally, I just like to see the history of my favorite franchises, try new things, and experience some of the highest rated and beloved pieces of gaming history of all time. Tetris Attack ain't modern, buddy. Because of this, I get a lot of enjoyment out of my game collection.
Why can't I get this sticker off? Why doesn't this game work? Where'd all the money go? I do, I promise.
However, those feelings of nostalgia are a much stronger thing to have towards your collection. Having that deep presence of sheer joy and memories come back while popping in an old game, that's magical. And enjoying that experience during a time like Christmas makes it all the more better. Just sitting down, turning on the Super Nintendo and playing good old Super Mario World on the CRT TV down here in the basement, and while I didn't have that exact experience growing up, I did play a lot of Super Mario World and it just feels right. Nostalgia's a great thing, it really is. As time goes on in the gaming community, AAA studios are getting more and more money hungry, games are getting more soulless, and things, in a way, just don't really seem like the same they used to for a lot of people. And that is why retro gaming is more popular than ever before right now. That's spectacular. It's so nice to hear people getting to re-experience the past. But as I said earlier,
where'd all the money go?
Yeah, all this comes at a cost. Literally. Because of the increased popularity of retro collecting, the prices of all that stuff has drastically increased over time. As time continues, every generation of consoles and games gets pricier and pricier, basically in chronological order. What I mean is that you get a wave of people nostalgic for the N64 and PS1 era, so those prices go up and stay up. Then, a few years later, people who grew up in the 6th generation of consoles get nostalgic and buy those consoles and games, so those prices go up and stay up. It just gets to a point of annoyance, but I can't complain much because without the increased popularity of the hobby, I wouldn't be doing this at all. So wait, maybe I should complain. This results in retro game prices standing toe-to-toe with modern game releases. Kirby Air Riders, released in 2025, was sold at an MSRP of $70. Yeah, your regular AAA release price tag. I just saw Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo on sale at a store near me for the same exact price. Seriously, this should be cheaper. It doesn't have Revenge of Meta Knight.
In all seriousness, this is a really unfortunate side effect that comes with nostalgia, but, I mean, you can't really point fingers. There's just people who want to re-experience their past. It's just that it makes retro game collecting for the non-nostalgic, however small that minority is, much harder to actually get into and to actually do. And what makes this even sadder for many is that it wasn't always like this. Get ready for me to tell you the story of how literally no one cared about retro games until like the 2010s. I mean no one, okay?
Gaming is all about moving forward with innovation and tech, and that was always true. Fans of video games, even though there weren't nearly as many as there are today, were always looking forward to the next thing. But the difference between then and now is back then, retro gaming and modern gaming didn't really coexist. The biggest reason you'd see people use lesser hardware compared to the newer consoles is because of the handhelds at the time being less powerful, but otherwise, people would normally throw their old consoles out. So being interested in collecting games from earlier console generations was never really a thing. However, the idea began began to slowly arise through the late 2000s and 2010s by spreading across the internet. Most notably, many people began to post things onto YouTube about the topic, with channels like Cinemassacre and its Angry Video Game Nerd series. And slowly but surely, people started to care more and more about Pac-Man. With this rising popularity of retro stuff, even companies began to take notice. So many pieces of merchandise of arcade stuff and Atari garbage flooded the shelves of stores, and more references to retro material were being crammed into newer games. For example, Nintendo added 8-bit Luigi's to Mario 3D World. That doesn't just normally happen. This whole thing continued to snowball until 2016. Nintendo was in a dark spot at this time, as the Wii U generation was neck deep, awaiting to drown as the few fans who hadn't actually moved on with their lives patiently unpatiently waited for the Nintendo Switch to release in March of 2017. Because Nintendo knew the Wii U was just dead, this was the holiday game. They released some weird thing called the NES Classic Edition. This was a mini replica of the NES that came digitally installed with a library of around 30 games, and the selection here was actually pretty solid. The convenience of the thing was great too. It only took an HDMI cord and the AC adapter to get this thing going, compared to the 21 aneurysms you'd have trying to hook up the original NES.
Okay, so the DVD cable goes to the VCR and oh my god, what? Who's laughing now? I'm the laughingest laugher that ever laughed. Ha!
The NES Classic Edition sold like hotcakes and was an astounding success for Nintendo. So not only did they go on to make the Super Nintendo Classic Edition the next year, so many game companies followed suit and made mini versions of their retro consoles. The C64 Mini came out, Sega made a bad Genesis Mini console, then a good Genesis Mini console, Sony released a PlayStation Classic, the TurboGrafx 16 Mini released, the list goes a little on. It got to a point where all this retro gaming merchandise began to saturate the market a little bit and rotted on store shelves for a long time, like even till today. I will admit some of this junk is cool though. I have this miniature Atari 2600 replica. Would I ever want to play these 10 Atari games on here for over 20 minutes? No, but is it a really cool novelty?
Well, that's up for you to decide.
This mini Pac-Man arcade machine is kinda cool, but it's not one of the My Arcade cabinets or other brands that emulates the original games onto an even smaller model of the arcade cabinet. And of course, Dig Dug and The Simpsons. Yeah, but this whole thing reached its peak in 2020. According to the news, some weird stuff was going on health-wise, so it left a lot of people in a situation like this.
Oh my god, I am so bored, and I can only play Luigi's Mansion 3 so many times. I think I have to go kill a man.
Some people also resorted to buying retro video games. Thus, the prices skyrocketed and they basically got to where they are today. Great. I hate the past and everyone born more than an hour ago.
Well, there you go. That's my history lesson on how nostalgia has kind of affected retro video gaming and collecting over the years. And while it's important to have this background knowledge on how companies responded to all this nostalgia, I'm more interested to see how it affects the modern day gaming landscape. For retro gaming, it's already kind of mixed. It provides positive connections with the players in the games, but it negatively increases the prices of all this stuff. I'm expecting mixed results from the modern day gaming discussion as well, but let's see what's going on.
Here, I want to show y'all something. Look at this article by IGN released in November of 2025 showing the 25 top-rated Nintendo games of all time. Number 1, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, a game on the N64 released over 25 years ago. Now, I haven't played this game. Should I be crucified and or hung for this reason? Maybe, but I'm just saying I can't personally talk. However, I've seen actual Ocarina of Time fans state that while the game is great, it doesn't hold up that great, at least to be number 1 on this list. In my opinion, this highlights a common problem I've been seeing in modern era gaming discussions, specifically when people compare old and new games. I mean, as retro gaming is much more common nowadays, people feel the need to compare those older games with fresh releases. But nostalgia, it ends up influencing people's opinions. What usually happens here is people who played specific games growing up defend them to no end and praise the living daylights out of the things, when a lot of the stuff they claim just isn't really true. Now, I'm not automatically saying that if you have nostalgia for a game you played and you like that game, then you have nostalgia bias for it. I'm saying that it's important to know where to cross the line. Personally, when I argue with people about some gaming stuff, I attempt to be as objective as possible, which can definitely be difficult at times, but to truly add to the conversation and make it so communicating with you isn't a genuine chore, you have to make sure that what you're saying about an old game that you played is at least somewhat objective. If you're throwing around, wow, I love Mario 64 and Dire Dire Docks is peak fiction, there's children nearby.
But yeah, this is unfortunately just another negative side effect of nostalgia. Because of the good memories ingrained in people's brains about specific games, it's sometimes hard for them to point out flaws, or heck, even just understand other people's criticisms about it. I think where nostalgia is best is when you have those positive connections, but also when you can understand flaws about some of your favorite games. It creates a unique situation where you love a game, but sometimes it can cause unneeded trouble. However, it wouldn't be Christmas if things didn't get a little personal. I pee in the shower. Now, I kind of want to talk about the games that I personally am nostalgic for. And if you still don't believe I can even feel nostalgia, whatever, you can either leave now or just imagine that I only have good memories of these games and that's it. Whatever helps you sleep at night. And for some, that might just be peeing in the shower.
Personally, I grew up mostly with the Wii generation, so a lot of the big Wii games at the time were in my arsenal. If they had Super Mario on the cover, I loved that guy. So yeah, the main game many people would think of is Super Mario Galaxy. I did have this game. Oh, how times haven't changed. The problem here is I barely remember anything about it. That is because I only got to the room with the first grand star and could never get past it without getting electrocuted. Seeing Mario's skeleton scared me more than it should have, which caused me to barely play the game after. And yeah, it does make sense how nostalgia wouldn't affect my argument about Super Mario Galaxy very much, as I barely have nostalgia for it at all, but I did eventually go back and beat it not many years later when I was like 9 or 10, so there's something there. Regardless, my opinion on Galaxy isn't spectacular. Is the game epic? Yes. Fun? Sure. But I think it tries to be Super Mario 64 and Sunshine, sometimes sporting expansive galaxies like Beach Bowl and Honey Hive, but Mario's stiffer moveset doesn't really complement it as much. I think I'm doing something wrong when I say I like Mario Galaxy 2 much better than the first, as many say they go hand in hand, but I think Galaxy 2 understands itself more and doesn't really try to have these expansive areas. It gets that its movement doesn't really work well in those places and goes full on linear. I love this approach, but I didn't play Galaxy 2 back in the day, so it doesn't matter. We'll give the nostalgia bias for Galaxy a 2 out of 10 for me. Maybe being scared of Mario causes my deep hatred for this game. I don't even hate the game, but just please imagine. Other games I played a lot were the flagship multiplayer titles on the system that weren't Wii Sports. I loved playing Mario Kart Wii and Super Smash Bros. Brawl with my friends and family, and to this day I'm still pretty big fans of the games. Mario Kart Wii is one I still go back to fairly regularly, as except for Mario Kart World, you can't really get the level of insanity that arises from this game. But Brawl is a bit different. It's a perfectly fine game, but something about it just feels a little off to me. This could also be caused by another thing. At the moment, I feel like I'm oversaturated from Smash games. I played the heck out of Smash Wii U and Ultimate, and I just feel worn out from playing the series. Because of this, I never really feel the need to go back to any Smash Bros. Title, Brawl included. And again, that doesn't say anything about Brawl as a game, I'm just saying my nostalgia bias is low here. Probably a 1 out of 10, honestly.
As for Mario Kart Wii, yeah, I do think nostalgia definitely has something to do with my love for this one. Mario Kart Wii is unique, but I've been playing this game with other people for so long now. It kind of just is nice to go back to a Mario Kart game that I suck at. I genuinely do think this is one of the greatest Mario Karts out there. There are objective reasons for this, of course, but I do think nostalgia does play a pretty big part in my religious beliefs regarding this one. So I think I'm going to give it like a 6 out of 10 on a nostalgia meter. But I think we all have that one game that was like ours, you know what I mean? Like one game that we played time and time again. One game that if we told the hitman not to kill, it'd be that one. And for me, it just so happens to be the first video game I ever played. New Super Mario Bros. Wii.
Released in 2009, god, this title screen, man. I loved this game and everything about it. Single player, multiplayer, the coin battle, well, no, I didn't really like that. I even like watching the hint movies you buy at the castle with star coins. This was my game and I loved it so. For the longest of times, I would declare it my favorite game of all time, but then that began to shift. Super Mario Odyssey took over, being a more inspired experience, and then Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury swept in, and with its aspect of variety, won me over and became my favorite still to this day. And while I do love this game a lot still, I find myself playing Mario Wii less and less and less. While it was great to me then, it is New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and there's no avoiding that. This is obviously a very uninspired Mario game, very basic. Replaying it just gets boring to me after I beat World 1. It's fun, but the amount of lucky circumstances that would have to occur to convince myself that I'd want to beat it again, it's just something I'd never really want to do. Is the game good? Yeah, of course. I'd say it's one of the most polished and well-made games on the Wii, but that was never an issue with why people weren't fans of the New Super Mario Bros. Sub-series. The lack of creativity and uniqueness was, and even though I still have all those fond memories regarding New Super Wii, it's a B-tier game at best. And with this argument, it sounds like I would rate my nostalgia bias here at like a 1, but I can't put into words, accurately at least, how much I loved this game and how much it felt like, as I said before, my game. I'd give it about a 4 out of 10 on the nostalgia meter, but I've got to leave it at that.
Well, in conclusion, nostalgia is both a good and bad thing. The feeling of it is really indescribable, and it improves life by a scarily impressive margin. But the side effects that come with it can be worse than good. It can lead to an oversaturation of game companies trying to push the thing and losing the feel and why it was so special in the first place. For example, Nintendo brought back the Tanuki suit in Mario 3D Land, and stripped it of the fight ability, or increasing prices for people who want to get into collecting retro video games, whether they're nostalgic or not. But it's hard to blame them. If anyone's to blame here for any issue, I guess it's the game companies because they're oversaturating the market with nostalgia crap. But I mean, as for the price thing, it's just the cycle of price and demand. I mean, it is the fault of the nostalgic for my empty pockets. I realize that, but I'm not actively going out and bringing them down because of it. And that's because I too understand the feeling. Whether or not the games I played a lot years ago are objectively good or not, nostalgia overall makes the gaming community a better place, as long as you know how to control its influence over your opinions and to not get blinded by the thing. However, that's all I have to say about nostalgia. Good night, and Merry Christmas. Oh my god.